Welcome back to Sunrise City World. Following up on those issues and more, we've got two gentlemen joining us here in the studios. Nicholas Felix is the former presidential aspirant of the party himself, as well as the Deputy National Youth Coordinator of the APC's Presidential Campaign Council. And sitting right beside him is Lemon Onoja, who is a member of the Strategic Communications Department of the PDP's Presidential Campaign Council as well. Good morning, gentlemen. Happy New Year to both.
Good morning.
Good morning. Happy New Year. Good to be here.
Well, I'm not sure if any of you are happy with the recommendation, the endorsement of former President Obasanjo, not picking any of your candidates. But first of all, are endorsements good or bad? I mean, don't your parties like endorsements? You like your party likes
naturally.
You like endorsement,
of course.
So, does it mean that this endorsement is significant?
As a two-time former president, who's governed the country for, what, 11 years, person of such international stature, you cannot say that the words that President Olusegun Obasanjo says are of no significance. Anybody who says that would be being naive, right? You cannot say that. He's a man of, and who, on the platform of our party, offered to Nigerians and Nigeria a significant amount of growth and development. You can't, there are certain things that are incontrovertible. So you have to take it that way. But then there are two things that you must also consider from his letter. There was an objective part based on fact, irrefutable figures, irrefutable reality of the Nigerian citizen. There's that part. And then there's the subjective part, which is based on President Obasanjo's personal opinion, which he has in the past also swayed in a different way. So if you look at it, there are two things you can take from that letter. And in our political party, in the PDP, in our presidential campaign, what we've done, and I will explain that in the course of this interview, is take what is important from that letter, which is irrefutable fact, objective irrefutable fact.
What are those, anyways?
Objective irrefutable fact is that Nigeria has never been this badly run. Objective irrefutable fact is that the reality of the average Nigerian has never been this bad. We have record unemployment, record insecurity, record lack of access to healthcare, record lack of access to education. We have youth unemployment at 52% 2 years ago, unemployment, general unemployment at 33% 2 years ago. The unemployment figures are so bad that the government is unwilling to release new, updated unemployment figures. Our country has never been this bad.
The government is really unwilling, or the NBS is really?
The NBS, whichever one you pick, right? Our country has never been so badly divided along religious, ethnic, and tribal lines. If you look at it, never before in the reality of the average Nigerian has the future been this bleak, been this terrible, been this painful. And when you take that objective reality, and it's not just President Obasanjo that says it, every global standard of measurement, every global index points to that reality, that Nigeria has never been this badly run. That is objective fact.
So because you're talking about facts, I mean, we can always have the APC respond to how they see, the facts, especially because they are the government in power. But what I'd like to, ask you is whether this is happening in isolation. We've been told about how even the world economy is not doing well. The IMF, or is it the World Bank, is predicting that even this year, about a third, if not two-thirds of the world economy will be seeing a recession. We're seeing what is happening in places like the UK, the US. China is no longer pursuing a zero-COVID policy. There's still countries that are still trying to recover from COVID. So when we talk about all of this happening, can we say that this is happening to Nigeria in isolation, or Nigeria is also experiencing what the rest of the world is currently experiencing?
While you can always situate contextually what goes on in Nigeria in a global paradigm, but don't always, we can also do that contextually the other way as well. And I'll say two things. One, Nigeria's economic security and all the issues about which I just spoke didn't start with COVID. They started in 2015. Immediately, this government was elected and got into power. 2 quarters later, we were in a recession.
No, but you know that is not exactly correct, because you also know that that recession was predicted even before the administration left. Mrs. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala,
no, she said we were going to have tough times. She didn't say that we're not going to have growth.
Yes, and it did seem that the indicators were already there.
You've now entered the realm of conjecture. When you say it seemed, you've entered the realm of conjecture. But can I finish the thought, please?
You may. I just want to bring it back to the fact that that was already, the indicators were already there as early as 2014.
Okay, but you now, and assuming without conceding, because we had more than 2% growth in the quarter just before the Buhari administration took over. You had unemployment at 9.6%, single-digit figures. You had inflation at 9.6%. You had unemployment also at single-digit figures. So when you say that, oh, things were bad.
Single digits or double digits? I know they were trying to get into single digits.
9.6%, I'm very sure. You can fact check me, I'm very sure. That out. Right? Now, all that presents that, oh, things were going to be difficult. There were going to be a few, there was going to be a few bumps on the road. But they were being better managed than we've seen post-2015. That is one. And then the second thing, even in the middle of the COVID recession, we're seeing oil-producing companies make massive profits. This is the first time in Nigerian history.
Which year is this?
This year. Saudi Arabia just did a budget excess of $25 billion. Right? Just there. There is an ongoing oil boom occasioned by the Russia-Ukraine war. This is the first time in national history that there is an oil boom and Nigeria is not benefiting anything from it in any manner whatsoever. When you put all those things together, it goes back to what the objective part of President Obasanjo's letter is. Nigeria has never been this badly run.
Before you go to the subjective part, I mean, I have to bring in here. I raised that MBS part because time and again we ask them and they always tell us MBS is an independent body. They do what they have to do based on their figures, so they publish it. So, Dr. Felix?
Once again, good morning and Happy New Year. And Happy New Year to Nigerians. Let me just quickly encourage everyone out there that this is a new year, and the youths, keep your hustle game on, and hope is coming. I believe after February 25th, we'll begin to bring in new air. So every youth out there, it's time to keep your hustle game on. I think your question was about the endorsement of Olusegun Obasanjo.
And the part that he says that the facts that are, at least he said, of objective facts of what the former president did say.
Yeah, first of all, I mean, like you said, endorsements are very much okay. Every one vote you get is enough to be excited. For me, I see his endorsement as one vote. Obasanjo has one vote, just like every other Nigerian has one vote. It's not, his endorsement didn't really cause any uproar in our camp. We don't see it,
It didn't. You've released a very strong statement.
Yes, of course we have to.
Countering that.
Yes.
Not just your party and the camp of your presidential candidate, but also the government has also released a statement.
Yes, I mean, of course they're going to release a statement. My point is,
they're not going to. They have.
Yes, my point is, in 2019, the candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, was the vice president.
Yeah, but the point of that is that it did shake the party.
It didn't shake nothing. It was the vice presidential candidate.
Why would all those statements be released from the federal government, from your party, if those statements it meant nothing?
It was the vice presidential candidate to Atiku. And these are joint forces together. And the same Obasanjo endorsed them. Did they win the election? The answer is no. So right now, because you have to understand, our Labour Party is the sister party to PDP. So the two of them put together in 2019 could not do any harm, even while they were running against the incumbent president, President Muhammadu Buhari. Now we have a new candidate. So we are not moved by that. To me, I see it as one vote. We respect him as an elder statesman who has led the country. But the question you ask yourself, if you look at national anthem, the labels of our heroes past, are we going to add him to that group of category? Is he one of our heroes past? For me as a youth, would I consider him an hero to be excited that he has endorsed anybody? So we're moving on with the campaign.
You don't consider him a hero?
I'm asking, should I, as an individual?
So I'm asking you that question. I want the answer.
I don't know how many political heroes are considered in Nigeria, because I don't know what he have done that to, you know, to give people like us hope. So he has done great, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if I will add him to that hero's past according to our national anthem. So I'm not moved. We are not moved. We are moving on with our campaign, because if the same endorsement did not produce any result, joint forces together in 2019, I wonder what...
so 2019 might be a different scenario. I mean, as Mr. Lemoja did acknowledge, there are parts of the letter which, you know, some people will consider facts. I mean, in terms of what they're... Even your party, by the very slogan, hope, you have to ask, you know, questions as to hope for what? I mean,
renewed hope.
You would, exactly, you're even renewing the hope. There are questions as to, if things were so great, why should we be hopeful? People are hopeful when things are bad, and then, you know, they're almost entering a state of despair, and they say, no, don't lose hope. It is not all lost. That's when hope comes in. So there are big questions as to even the slogan that your own party has picked for its campaign. But let me ask you, as the last part of his response, that there are parts of, you know, our reality that, you know, can be, you know, situated within an international context. But there are parts of our reality that are self-inflicted and, you know, are just peculiar to us. One of which he cited is the, you know, oil prices. The oil prices boom, which, you know, many oil-producing countries are currently experiencing. Nigeria is currently benefiting from the oil price, but it's having almost no effect, at least where we ordinary, let me not put myself there, but where ordinary Nigerians, everyday Nigerians can feel it. It doesn't seem that the everyday Nigerian can feel that there is currently an oil boom happening internationally right now. Do you think that is how, you know, that is part of what, you know, that points to how your party is currently managing the country's resources?
Now, forgive me for always going this route. You know, one of the reasons I try not to focus more on the current administration is because we have a few months for this administration to be over. And like I've always cited, there are a few areas I believe this administration would have done more, which they have not. Even though I'm a member of the APC, I recognize that fact, which is the area of security. But what we must understand, a new administration is coming in. I think that's why we're here. We're talking about the next election, which is in about 52 or 53 days. And the person of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, there are a lot of things he's going to change. He's a man, I believe, with great vision for this nation. This is politics. Even in America, as great as the economy is, $21 trillion economy, bigger than the entire Africa. When it's political time, they say the same thing. People complain about unemployment. People complain about insecurity, even in America. People complain about everything. So when we are speaking political terms, we're here talking about how bad this economy has been. I'm sure even after this administration and unemployment goes down, and we begin to feel all the great impact of having been an oil-producing nation, the next election, people are still going to complain. My point is, a new administration is coming in, and that's why we have the slogan, hope. Even billionaires always need hope.
We cannot...
Billionaires always want hope. So talking about hope has nothing to do with just being poor.
We can't dismiss.
Yes.
I really wish we could, but we can't dismiss the fact that your party is currently the party in power. I mean, when we look at what is happening in the United States, for instance, I mean, when the Democrats are there and they're looking for re-election, they're campaigning based on what it is that the Democrats have achieved. They cannot say, no, the administration of this one is going. You still have to be, you know, elect another Democrat. You have to campaign based on what it is that your party has been able to achieve through the government in power. So the question is, what precisely, why should Nigerians trust your party once more to be able to deliver it, knowing that, you know, it campaigned on three things: security. You say you acknowledge that your party hasn't done as well as it ought to in the area of security. If it said it was going to fix security since 2015, why should they trust that it's going to do any better this time around?
The administration has done well in infrastructure. In my own book, this administration has not sold anything out. If you're telling us to go back to an era where all what we have were privatized, we used to have NEPA, we don't have any. We used to have the telecommunication system. Everything has been sold out. I see privatization has been and selling our properties. And to even think about the fact that we're talking about going back to the same administration that sold all of these things. You know, I was...
you see privatization as selling as a property?
Yes, I see it as that. I mean, I'm speaking personally. Now, let's look at the rally the PDP candidate had in Lagos. He was talking about empowering the youth. And I heard him say this, that people ask him, where are you going to get the money from? The $10 billion you want to give to the youth. He said, if I privatize our oil company, if I privatize it, I will get 10 billion. I was outraged watching it on TV. You mean for us, you want to sell the last thing that we have for you to be able to get 10 billion to empower the youth? I see that as very insulting for me as a young person who has hope in this country. Now, you don't tell us we want to go back to this era. Yes, there are things that need to be done, but there are no more bombings all over. If you recall, there used to be suicide bombing everywhere, whereby you're walking, you're looking at your back, you're in a church, the churches can't even gather, the pastor have to be the one to give signal if we have to run, but at least that has been taken care of. Yes, there's still problem in the insecurity, which we must improve. Now, every nation fights insecurity.
Churches did gather.
Yes, every nation fights insecurity. A lady was just killed by police in Lagos. That we experience in America all the time. These issues of insecurity,
is it justified?
They're all over. I'm not saying it's justified. I'm saying we are living on earth, we are not in heaven. There are issues. And that's why when we come to campaign, we want to address issues. And every administration that comes in, do their best to make sure they handle the part that they can. So, but it's not a yardstick for us to go back to this past administration. Let's not even think about that.
You know, I don't think he even knows what he's campaigning for. He doesn't know the party he's campaigning for. Straight away.
Why what do you mean? I don't know.
Because
I
will tell you why. I'll tell you why I say you don't know your party. Because we're smack in the middle. The Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the current Vice President, acknowledges that the oil company about which you're outraged that is going to be sold, or that we propose to sell, needs to be sold. The Vice President acknowledges that.
Just the way you have sold every other thing.
Hold on. You're saying that hold on. I listened to you now. But I did listen.
He didn't interrupt you.
I didn't interrupt you.
Don't worry. You will speak after that.
Hold on.
When I come to this people, I try not to be
let's make it decent and in order.
Politician.
You know that principle, so don't worry. You will speak afterwards. Go ahead.
Your political party admits what my political party proposed 4 years ago, that sell the national company. In fact, as part of the implementation of the new Petroleum Industry Act, there is an ongoing shoddy, clandestine sale of NNPC going on. So when you come and you say you're outraged that we say we should sell it in a more transparent manner, but your political party is doing it in a shoddy, clandestine manner, you don't know what you're talking about.
What do you mean clandestine sale of NNPC? If the PIA Act is there for everybody to see.
Listen. Our party proposes something, and we propose it off the basis of certain things. NNPC is a morass of corruption, right? You haven't had NNPC contribute anything to the national coffers this year, almost all year, for at least 6 or 7 months.
They gave a reason.
Hold on. We'll go on further. I'll give you an example. Last year, in 2021, you spent $1.5 billion on turnaround maintenance for the Port Harcourt refinery. It still hasn't refined a single barrel of crude oil. And we're proposing, you know what? Why should we be spending all this money from the government, sell it, let private investors do with it whatever they will? How does anybody get outraged by that? And to come down to the finer points, I don't think anybody coming on national television and saying, oh, the privatization of telecoms is a bad thing and outrages him is a very decent, and I'm trying very hard to be respectful, thing to say. Because what was the contributions of the telecom sector to GDP in the year 2021? Potentially, and if I'm not mistaken, 18.9% was what your telecom sector contributed to GDP in 2021. For you to come and say that you're outraged, I don't think you're indicting your party.
We'll come to Dr. Felix when we return in just a moment. It's break time, actually, so we will be back. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Well, Dr. Felix, we're going to get a response to what he says. He doesn't understand why you will be outraged, because privatization did bring us to where we are in telecoms these days.
Now, what is the difference when you talk about telecom? When did the GSM began? So if you're comparing it to the age where the only means we had was just landline, we had no GSM that has, revolutionized the world today, I think it's quite different. My point is, for us as youth, we cannot allow these politicians to sell everything. Very soon we'll be on sale.
Look, so and China they can sell some things, not everything.
Yes, and China will be coming to buy us very soon. If you're telling me privatizing an oil company is the only way you're going to get money to finance the youth, and as a youth...
So, but for telecoms, do you think it's good?
I don't think anything should be sold. Has it done us anywhere?
Telecoms?
We were told. Now, let's look at the general picture. How much was it sold for? That's the next question. Who bought it? You see, this guy's, he wants to, the candidate of the PDP wants to enrich his friends. He wants to sell everything in Nigeria and make Tom his friends.
Is that what he said?
He said that, yes, that what was wrong for his friends to be rich. My point is, we cannot afford.
So you don't like your friends to be rich? Now, let me know now, so your friends can know where you are. You stand in this matter.
Not at the expense of our great nation. Yes, my friends can be rich. They can go and work hard, start their business and do the needful. Not at the expense of our great nation. My point is, you look at the NEPA. We used to call it NEPA. I did my IT with NEPA. It was privatized in the so-called sense that there will be lights. Now, do we have light? How many? Which state or which city can celebrate that for the past 7 days there hasn't been any light failure? It has not done us any good. My point is, the only thing we have left, please, in the name of God, don't sell it. That's what we are saying.
I'm very sorry, yeah. And this is typical of the APC. What we hear here, rhetoric. It's anecdotes. There's no real solution in which he's not speaking about anything that is solution-based to Nigeria's problems. And speaking, I'll just piggyback off power that he raises. My candidate says the simple thing. You know what? Where is the biggest problem in power that we have at the moment? It is the size of your transmission grid. It is too small. We're generating more power than we transmit. So we propose a very simple solution. Break up the transmission grid, regionalize it, right? Bring private sector investment into it so that you can expand it. And then, if you generate more power, you'll be able to transmit more power, which means you'll be able to distribute more power. My candidate proposes, another thing, we don't have enough meters in the electricity system. You know what? Let's get people metered so that more than 50% of the power that we transmit doesn't waste. It isn't unbilled for. So we're speaking solutions. Right. But the APC...
What do you think about... His candidate was the vice president for 1920. They had the opportunity to do this.
I would like to respond to this particular point.
They had the opportunity.
Can you tell us what you think should be done or what your party intends to do with transmission?
Now, we need to create more avenue for that. The issue of transmission is something that needs to be looked into. I believe, this is just from my personal opinion, I believe it's the political will. Not that we don't know what to do. Not that we don't have engineers and people who can get this job done. I believe there are people who are profiting from this dilemma, from this pain that we are in. We need somebody with a political will to get the job done. It's not that we don't know. We need somebody who will damn the consequences, who will look into the face of these people who are profiting of the pain of Nigeria.
How exactly?
My candidate is that man who will get the job done.
How?
Because the candidate of the PDP was there before. For 8 years.
He spoke about the how. So we need to hear
for 8 years, we need to look into it and be able to create more line to be able to transmit. We generate, but we cannot transmit. It's simple. We have engineers who can do that. What we are saying is we need the political will to be able to do it. And that man, that is what we are looking for.
That's generic.
The solution has been out there. The solution is out there. But doing it, 1999 to 2007, they had the solution. But they did not do it. The question is why? Are you just knowing the solution?
Well, your party hasn't done it either now.
Okay, are you just knowing the solution? My candidate hasn't been in power. My candidate hasn't been in power. My candidate hasn't been in power. He's running for the first time to become president of this great country.
But he's running on
he's going to do it.
Your party
He's running on the party. He's going to be the leader of the party, and he's going to change the game. That's what we're here to.
Is it that you're not proud of the party's achievements so far?
Do you know how much I spend in nomination form? I knew about APC before I went there. Why would I not be part of the party?
Okay.
Which party do you want to compare it with? PDP?
So when you keep
I'd like
saying,
to respond. I'd like to very quickly respond.
okay, well, Ayo's going to come in right after that. I don't know if your question is directed at you, but go ahead before he comes.
I would say this, yeah. When he speaks again about history is a good thing, and people should study history. You say my candidate was in power between 1999 and 2007. What we propose for transmission is the last of a triangle that resolves Nigeria's power problems that started during his tenure in office. It started there. The process for unbundling Nigeria's power sector started while he was in office. Okay. He's saying we've done two phases. We've privatized generation, we've privatized distribution, privatized transmission, so that you've completed the 3 phases. And then you will have an improvement. My candidate speaks with a plan. I can speak about my candidate's plan because he has a plan. You can't because there isn't. It's really that simple.
You want to respond to that?
Let's go to the next question.
Okay, Ayo, go ahead, please. You have the floor.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Let me stick with Mr. Onoja for a bit. To the very issue that you just concluded now, let me begin from there. You're speaking about the fact that, your candidate has a plan to continue something that started while he was in office. And if the plan was for that, the intention was for the plan that he initiated as, while in office as vice president, was to be sustained, how come the successive candidates, successive governments of the PDP didn't continue that plan, if indeed it was a plan?
There were many legal and regulatory issues related to the power sector, for instance. And one of the things that many people forget about where we came from in 1999 is that we didn't have the legal and the regulatory framework to resolve a lot of these issues. There were legal frameworks relating to the power sector that required you to pass laws, that required you to completely redraft policy, that required you to terminate employment, pay off benefits. There were all sorts of issues that were related to that, and it was always going to take time. The Obasanjo-Atiku administration, between 1999 and 2007, eventually got there and started setting out the framework. The Jonathan administration took it a step further, completed 2 parts of the 3 phases of unbundling, when they unbundled generation and distribution, right? And then we have all these GENCOs, the 5 GENCOs and the 11 DISCOs, I think it is. It is the transmission phase now to put us firmly on the path to having sustainable power for everybody. We're proposing enter the transmission phase and resolve the difficulties that are there. Once you resolve that difficulty, you've completed the last phase of a roadmap that would have been completed if we didn't have the last 7.5 years of confusion, of a lack of direction, of bad, sheer, terrible governance and, confusion that we've had from the APC. So there was always a plan in place. We're just saying complete phase 3 of that plan.
The government of the PDP government before this government was as effective as you say it was. I wonder why people would have voted them out at the time, because it was for the same issue of bad governance that Nigerians said we had enough. But let me come back to Mr. Felix. Now, some of the issues that you have raised, Mr. Felix, now there are those who are wondering if indeed, according to the question my colleague asked you the other time, if indeed you are persuaded about the fact that your candidate has what it takes, because much of what you're saying, my colleague has been asking you the how question. It's not just whether or not is the issue now, it's the how you're going to do it. The challenge Nigerians have had over time is people make promises and speak on behalf of their principles the way you're doing now, and they don't tell us how. It's even a little more curious because you were at some point yourself a presidential contender, aspirant, and so one wonders, if indeed you had become the candidate, what would have been your personal roadmap to resolving this particular issue of electricity that we're talking about?
Yeah, we all know the problem with our electricity. We are generating, but we cannot transmit. So the issue now is to look into the transmission and be able to transmit what we generate. Several times we've had the national grid breakdown, and we need to be able to come up with strategies and plan to be able to transmit the issue with electricity. Again, it's not something that you can come on national TV and give you all the detailed breakdown, the engineering involved. But we all know the problem is the problem of transmission. And that's what my candidate is going to address. The PDP had 16 years for used to be planning to do one simple thing for 16 years. We don't need such administration or such party anymore. We need somebody like Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is going to be able to look into the issue of transmission and be able to address it head on. Why is it that we can generate and yet we cannot transmit? And be able to raise up a committee that will look into it and address that issue.
We're still talking about the energy sector. Is this vexed matter, which of course, you know, your partner right there also spoke to, the fact that the government of the APC has spent not a little bit of money to try to resolve the refineries that are not functional. And there are those who would, you know, jocularly say, turn around maintenance without any turnaround. And that money has been spent is not the issue now. The issue is, why should Nigerians trust the APC one more time with the coffers of the nation when the investments that have been made have not yielded desired results?
Nigerians should trust the APC because of the candidate that we have. We have a man who has built a system while he was governor in Lagos. Apparently, he's the only candidate that people still refer to what he did as governor. We have the candidate of the PDP, who was vice president for 7 years, but now all they have to tell us is plan, plan, plan. But for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, when he was governor, he put a system in place which is still working even after years of leaving office. So that's what Nigeria should look at. Who is this man? He's a man with vision. He's a man with a political will to get the job done. He's a unifier. He's somebody when he handles
Mr. Felix,
the economy.
we hear you on that, but
so
you are
not
specifically speaking to the issue that I raised about the investments made in the petroleum sector for the refineries to function, and they have not functioned until now. Is there a reason you're aware of to say, okay, Nigerians, this didn't work because of this, but if the administration, the next administration is, you know, the next APC administration comes on board, this is what they will do to ensure that the investments that have been made are justified?
Our refineries did not packed up last year. These refineries has been down. Apparently, the PDP administration did nothing about it. This current administration, I don't know the effort they put into making sure our refineries are working. But this issue did not begin with Muhammadu Buhari. That's one thing we must understand. That some of the issues we are dealing with did not start, insecurity did not start with Muhammadu Buhari. Insecurity started with the PDP administration, where they were bombing all over the place. But what we are saying, the new administration, we have to focus on this issue to address it. I would love to come on national TV and be crying over speed milk, but a new administration is coming. Our candidate has the ability to keep this refinery going. That's what we should focus on, not just crying over for the past 8 years. Apparently, PDP had 16 years, could not do the same thing we're expecting the APC to do in just 8 years.
Well, you know, Mr. Felix, it's very interesting that you put it that way because, I mean, as an entrepreneur, when you want to employ someone, you look at the person's credentials, an individual. But now we're not only looking at the credentials of the individual, we're looking at the credentials of the individual through its recruitment agency, which is the APC. So we cannot excuse the platform of the APC and look just at the credentials of the candidate. But let me come to Mr. Onoja. Well, you've spoken about this the other time as well and say that, you know, the APC has spent X amount of money in dollars and they haven't done anything. A whopping $1.6 billion, which was at the time about 251 billion naira, was voted for turnaround maintenance of the 4 refineries across the country by the end of 2014. Turnaround maintenance without any turnaround. Why should Nigerians trust the PDP again?
If you recall, your statement says it was voted at the end of 2014. 2 months later, the PDP lost an election. 5 months later, the PDP left office. That program was not seen through. Very simply put, if we'd seen it through, we probably wouldn't be here. Remember also that our position since 2019 has also been, you know what? Instead of putting another 1.5 billion into the Port Harcourt refinery or any other refinery, take that money, put it in healthcare, put it in education, put it in infrastructure. Take this loss-making, loss-accruing institution, and it's not an asset. That's a loss. That's an operational loss, year on year. Take it, privatize it, take your hands out of it, regulate it, accrue taxes that you can also add to. So when Mr. Nicholas Felix spoke about where will our candidate get money to give young people to start businesses, it is from places like that. Cut your losses. When you cut the losses that you're making, make whatever capital you can make from the sale of that. Again, I struggle to call it an asset because it makes losses year on year, and then remove your hands, earn taxes from it. So to directly answer your question, it was at the end of 2014. 2 months later, PDP lost an election. Or was it 2 or 3 months later? PDP lost an election. 5 months later, PDP left government. And as such, it couldn't see that program through. It's very simply put.
2014. Even under the watch of your principal as vice president, a lot of money was equally spent to try to make the refineries work so that Nigeria does not import finished petroleum products. You know, but that's just beside the point.
Remember that at the end of the Obasanjo Atiku administration, that asset, those refineries had been sold. Remember that at the end of the Obasanjo Atiku administration, we're coming again in 2019 to a program, to a policy that my candidate recommended and was part of the implementation of in 2007. What do you call that typically in political parlance? That is vision. Where the rest of the country is catching up now in 2019, in 2022, to a policy that my candidate said in 2007. How many years later? That is vision.
So now,
is vision.
No doubt, you know, that Nigeria has a lot of challenges on its hands, and successive governments have only tried to scratch the surface of every problem. Successive governments have had such serious issues that when that government is in office, and this has been my own personal experience as a journalist, when that government is in office, people are saying, oh, well, the previous government was better. We didn't know it was going to be this bad. That speaks to systems that could not sustain development. Now, how do we ensure, and that's for you and for Mr. Felix as well, how do we ensure that the systems that we have right now will be strengthened to support the structures and the policies that your candidate is going to come up with? I ask that advisedly because your candidate is not going to be the one to go to the port. He's not going to be the one to go to the border towns. He's not going to be the one to go to the various ministries, departments, and agencies. He's going to have to recruit like 1,000 people on that one ticket to ensure that the heads of ministries, departments, and agencies of government do the needful to execute these policies. So, how do we ensure that the systems of government will be able to hold up against any pressure that will make sure that they don't, whatever it is that they're doing doesn't work?
There are two things to directly answer your question. One, speaking sometime in 2019, it was, former President Olusegun Obasanjo spoke about my candidate's ability to put in place the sorts of teams that will lead Nigeria properly. He spoke of my candidate as a team leader and spoke about his ability to find competent people who have the capacity and the character to be able to effectively lead Nigeria. If we remember, between 1999 and 2007, my candidate demonstrated the ability to unearth competent people with character and capacity from across the world and to put them into, to recommend them and then give them the, adequate, adequate political will to be able to perform creditably well in office. And so in that, I speak about two things. The first thing being the ability to identify people who should fill office. And then the second thing is the ability to give them, the political backing, the political confidence that they need from their leader to be able to perform do the things that they require in office.
Which is largely, I think, what your party too has marketed, that your candidate has the ability to identify. But I want to quickly, read something from the former president's letter. He says, I became head of state at 39, and at 42, I had retired into the farm. When it was considered necessary, I was drafted back into active political life after 20 years of interregnum. I came back at 62, and by 70, I was on my way out. And he also mentioned other leaders. He says, the vigor, energy, agility, dynamism, and outreach that the job of leadership of Nigeria requires at the very top may not be provided as a septuagenarian or older. I know that from personal experience, and it is glaring out of our current experiences. Otherwise, we will be fed with the president says, and you will neither see nor hear him directly as we should. Now, that speaks to both the candidates of the APC and the PDP and their fears. I mean, you have your turn. Let me start with you, Mr. Felix. This is something a lot of Nigerians, really fear with the candidate of your party. I mean, at least he celebrated 70 openly. Some argue that he could be older. But from the experience of someone who's been there, he believes that, neither of the candidate of the APC nor the PDP has the agility and the vigor which the office requires.
Now, if I may quickly dive to the question regarding system. I'm so glad he brought that question up, because that's something now we need in Nigeria. A system where the new administration, regardless of your political party, will be able to run on. Nigerians lack that system now. That's why you hear somebody like Peter Obi will say, I saved $200 or something million when I was leaving. I saved this amount of money. And the new administration, whatever they did with the money, we don't see the effect. So I would rather you spend the money than even saving it. There is no system. The only candidate who we can boldly say has put a system while he was a governor is Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. For example, let me explain something that he brought up.
I want you to quickly speak to. I want you to quickly speak to it, because while you always refer to what has happened in Lagos, he's not the same age that he was when he was governor of Lagos.
I'll go there. For example, my candidate has proposed a credit system which Nigeria don't have. Do you know that is the foundation and the bedrock of American economy? If you take out the credit system today from America, the America will crumble. People have houses today, is the credit system. People can buy cars today, is the credit system. Now, they are not, it's not everything you can do in a state. You have to make it national. You can't have a credit system in a particular state. These are some of the things he's mentioning. We need a
question, we need to go.
Now, our candidate just got back from London. And as of yesterday, is in Kano, having a meeting today in Kano. Tomorrow, we're going to be having a rally in Kano. On Friday, we're going to my state, Edo State. For the entire month, we have rallies planned. He's going to be attending all the rallies. Now, I understand that this is democracy. We went into the primaries, 23 candidate aspirants. 1,271 delegates thought otherwise. 1,271 delegates said, this is the man we want. We know he's capable to lead our party, and they voted for him. And if 1,271 delegates see that, we are rallying behind our candidate. For me, like I've always said, he's strong enough to get the job done, and we're all here to support.
One of the things that part of the letter spoke about, which Mr. Felix has demonstrated repeatedly here, is avoiding accountability to the Nigerian people. And it's the reason why Mr. Felix is not answering the questions. Their candidate, and you people, Channels TV has held a town hall meeting.
Can you quickly answer the question?
The question is, my candidate is available. Not only is he strong in body, he's also proposing very powerful ideas to reform, recover Nigeria, and place us firmly back on the path to growth and development. My candidate is speaking to the Nigerian people, and he's not doing so just at rallies. He's doing so at town hall meetings. He's doing so in the media. He's doing so everywhere that it's possible. My candidate is not like another candidate that is completely hiding away from the media and has said he's not going to do certain sorts of interrogations and he's not going to attend intellectual spaces, because he knows that if he appears there, the vacuity, the emptiness, the hot air that is his candidature will immediately be shown up.
All right,
my candidate is in front of the Nigerian people.
We need to go.
Okay.
Thank you very much indeed. But, you know, we did check that inflation figure which you spoke about, and it was published in 2014 that inflation rate for 10 months was consistently high, but all highs were in single digits. So in that context, it was consistently high, just as it also was high. It is high now.
9.6%. On the 2nd of June.
All highs were in single digits.
Okay, fine.
But they were, for 10 months, consecutively, consistently high. Gentlemen, we need to go. Thank you both for coming on. Ilemon Onoja, member, Strategic Communications Committee of the PDP's Presidential Campaign Council, and Dr. Nicholas Felix, a former presidential aspirant himself, and now the Deputy National Youth Coordinator of APC's Presidential Campaign Council. Thank you very much indeed for coming on, both of you. And
thank you for
we'll always be for having us. That is the show today. We thank you for watching as well. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain Oso.
Thank you for watching. I'm Maokpe Ogun Yusuf.
And I'm Aya Makinde. Have a wonderful rest of your day.